social media, where we all live now. No? So just yesterday, I was privileged to watch one of our participants, Hussein, talk about their plans over Facebook Live. No? I think there was a session organized by the Bangsamoro Youth Commission, and he was talking about the plans of their, I don't know if that's a political party, maybe he can share some of that, what he said yesterday. But because of social media, I'm able to do that. No, I have access to that information, and Hussein and his group has the platform to express those information. So social media has amplified our ability to get and to share information. Now, that is very crucial when it comes to the politics of problem solving, right? Because as I've said before, the politics of problem solving involves identifying problems and formulating solutions. And therefore, information, facts, the truth is vital. So the ability of political parties to be successful in terms of engaging or being a propagator of the politics of problem solving is also their ability to capitalize on social media, right? Now, while the politics of problem solving is our antidote against hyper partisanship, social media is also a vehicle to increase hyper partisanship, right? And it is through disinformation, the spread of disinformation in social media, that foments that. The spread of disinformation in social media foments hyper-partisanship. Actually, not just in or amongst political parties, but amongst political groups and political communities. So, if political parties in the barn are to be genuine principled political parties that are active in social media, okay, then let's dive in to what principles should they be founded on. Specifically, what constitutional principle should GPP or G3P should be founded on. So let me begin by referring to some constitutional principles. Let me start with a reference to the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. So at the international level, individuals, every one of us, okay, have the right to free speech, to free expression. Okay? Actually, it's not just a political right, it's a universal human right. This is also found in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. But what's vital for me is that the right to the freedom of expression includes the right to seek and receive and impart information and ideas of all kinds. Right? So when we access information, when we share information, be it in social media or in the real world, we are actually exercising a human right. Okay? That is inherent in all of us, right? Okay, let's keep that in mind, no? That we have the right to receive and impart information and ideas of all kinds. And therefore, that brings a responsibility to preserve uh, the public space. Okay? We do, again, going back to disinformation, okay? Because if we allow disinformation to poison the public space, then that is actually allowing an undermining of our right to access information, to access the truth, and to share the truth, okay, in the public space. Now, because we are talking about political parties, I would like to read this right, this our freedom of expression, which includes our right to seek and receive and impart information and ideas of all kinds. I would like to read this together with another provision of the covenant, which is this one, which says that every citizen have the right to participate in political activities. Okay? So when we exercise our right to free speech, to free expression in the political space, we have to bear in mind that as political activists, we also exercise free speech. We also exercise free expression. Right? And therefore, when we are active in the political space, we also express, no? We also exercise or assert our right to have access to information, ideas, and also to share those information and ideas. Which means, again, we have the duty to protect the political space against disinformation. So political parties, which we know is just an organized group of individuals participating in the political space, exercising their right to free speech and free expression, they have the right, they have the responsibility to protect that space against disinformation, because disinformation destroys that space. By fomenting hyper-partisanship, disinformation limits the ability of political parties, of individuals, to work together, to find solutions to the problems they are all enduring. So that is how I would like us to understand the constitutional underpinning of genuinely principled political parties, right? In the context of the politics of problem solving. Now, this is at the international level. Let's dive into the domestic level. And I would say that our jurisprudence, our constitution actually is more direct with this in that regard. So the 1987 Constitution fundamentally just repeats what the covenant says, that citizens, Filipinos, have the inherent right to free speech and free expression without interference from the government, from the state. That's pretty clear in our Constitution. But what is peculiar with our Constitution is the one that I underlined. Okay? This one is, at least as far as my research has reached, I haven't seen any other constitution have this statement. No? And I could be corrected. So yung mga panyero and panyeras dyan, you can correct me. In this particular phrase, the petition the government for redress of grievances, okay, that to me tells me that in our jurisdiction, free speech, free expression also includes the right to find solutions to our problems, right? Or to demand from government solutions to our problems. Kasi that's what this phrase actually means, right? Grievances is problems, redress is solutions, right? So in exercising our free speech, our free expression, that also includes our right to demand government solutions to our problems. Now, that to me means that we actually, under our constitution, we have the responsibility, we have the duty to engage in the politics of problem solving. Right? If we are to exercise the right of free speech, of free expression, then it follows that we can engage in the politics of problem solving. Now, the Supreme Court goes even further, deep, and actually helps clarify and elucidate what I mean, okay, in explaining what freedom of expression under the Constitution means. So, according to the case of ABS-CBN versus COMELEC, freedom of expression means is a means, okay, of attaining the truth, of securing participation by the people in social and political decision making. So, if individuals are asserting this freedom of expression, that means they are expressing a commitment to the truth, right? And more than that, they are also asserting a commitment to robust public discourse. Okay? So, freedom of expression is not just about saying what you want. No? I mean, that's just a very shallow understanding of freedom of expression. In the context of the politics of problem solving, freedom of expression means a commitment to the truth. That's number one. And also the commitment to maintaining robust political or public discourse. Okay? So, bringing it back to our discussion on genuinely principled political parties. As I've said earlier, okay, at the heart of G3P really is individuals asserting freedom of expression in the political sphere, in the political arena, organizing themselves to participate in the political process. Now, genuinely principled political parties recognize that at their very core, they are fundamentally founded on, number one, a commitment to the truth, okay? And number two, a commitment to preserve robust public discourse. That is what a genuinely principled political party should mean in the bar, okay, from the constitutional perspective. Again, just to repeat, okay, what are GPP? What are G3P in the context of the politics of problem solving? At the heart of that, of a genuinely principled political party, is a commitment to the truth and a commitment to robust political discourse. Now, in the word, expressing it now in the context of the politics of problem solving, genuinely principled political parties, therefore, are those that are committed to identifying what the problems of the community or what the problems that are plaguing the community based on evidence-based analysis. Okay? And also finding solutions to these problems based on fact-based and evidence-based analysis. Okay? So that is what those are the kind of political parties we want to operate in the BARM. In contrast to political parties that we see at the national level, which are preoccupied with hyper-partisanship, fighting with one another. Now, let me just clarify that when we talk about political parties that are open to working together, working for the common good under this context of the politics of problem solving, it doesn't mean that there is no disagreement. Okay? In fact, the Supreme Court said that freedom of speech or freedom of expression represents a profound commitment to the principle that debates on public issues should be uninhibited, robust, and wide open. But it doesn't mean that all of the ideas shared, all of the thoughts that circulate in that public arena are all the same or all agree with one another. No, that's not what is envisioned by this constitutional regime. In fact, what the Supreme Court said, a commitment to free speech means a recognition that disagreement can occur, right? But in our context, a disagreement can occur, but it shouldn't lead to discord. It shouldn't lead to an us versus them mentality. Okay? There is respect for the diversity in views, but there is always that threshold where fighting with one another is not an option. Okay? Hyper-partisanship is a no-go zone, kumbaga. So our genuinely principled political parties respect diversity, differences in views, but will never engage in hyper-partisanship. And that just reflects a commitment to free speech, free expression. Okay. Again, when we talk about genuinely principled political parties, we talk about it in the context of the Bangsamoro Parliament. Again, at the risk of sounding like a broken record, the reality is we don't want our political parties in the BARM to be mere clones of our political parties at the national level, because we don't want the Bangsamoro Parliament to be just a mirror of the Congress. And the reason we don't want that is because we want the Bangsamoro Parliament to be a paragon of self-determination, of genuine regional autonomy. We want the Bangsamoro Parliament to succeed. We don't want it to be another quote-unquote failed experiment. And therefore, we want genuinely principled political parties competing in the parliamentary elections, whenever that may be. Now, with that, I have to say that this notion of genuinely principled political parties, which are committed to the truth, to facts, that begins in party formation, right? Specifically informing what the party is all about, right? So we do not want to see political parties that are really about nothing, kumbaga ampaw. We want to see political parties in the BARM that really are about advocacies. So if you're, for example, if you are a political party that aims to represent workers, then the policies that come out of your political party should be about addressing problems that impact workers, such as labor relations in the BARM or workers' rights in the BARM. Okay? If you are a youth party, then your party should be talking about the problems that impact the youth. Like same with if you want to protect the environment in the region, then the policies that you offer must directly address problems about your advocacy. We don't want to see political parties in the region that have pro forma platforms. Now, I remember I had the privilege of being a commentator in one of the debates in the 2019 elections. The participants of that debate came from different political parties. No? And yet, they were actually talking about the same thing. No? Our party wants to address poverty and provide more jobs. So they were churning out pro forma platforms because they were all identifying, general problems. That's pretty obvious, no? So we don't want to see that kind of political parties in the BARM. What we want political parties in the region to offer are solutions that address particular problems. Okay? That's the kind of political parties we want to see operating in the political space in the region. Now, as a caveat, as a warning, if political parties in the region deviate from that, instead of offering problem-based or solutions to problems afflicting the BARM, specific problems, and then instead of that, they focus on partisanship, on fighting with one another, competing for positions, right? For political power rather than really finding solutions to what's ailing the BARM, then again, I don't want to sound like a broken record. If the political parties in the region are mere clones of parties at the national level, then the Bangsamoro Parliament could end up being, or the BARM can end up being another failed experiment, quote unquote, which we want to avoid, right? So there is a huge challenge for political parties in the BARM to, at the very instance, even at the process of formation, like what we're doing now, to be evidently different from what the national parties are. Okay? And they can show that with what they have to offer in terms of advocacy as to whether they actually address particular problems, not the just general slogans and sound bites, but offer actual solutions to actual problems. Now, we are also concerned not just about how political parties behave in the political arena, no? In the public space, but we're also concerned about political parties and how they behave inside the parliament, particularly the Bangsamoro Parliament. We don't want our parliamentarians who represent political parties, theoretically, to behave badly. No? We don't want them to disrespect the sanctity of the institution, which is the Bangsamoro Parliament. And therefore, we don't want hyper-partisanship to rule the day in the internal dynamics of the Bangsamoro Parliament. So we want political parties, again, to be committed to finding solutions rather than fighting one another. So if we want genuinely principled political parties in the BARM, then they have to really focus on finding solutions to the problems that they have identified or prioritized. And they push for that, their legislative agenda, not in a hyper-partisan way, but in a cooperative way. We don't want our politicians or our parliamentarians to be preoccupied with pushing for their own political interests. Okay? That is why we want our political parties in the BARM to be more focused on finding solutions, right? So that when they enter government, when they get elected in the parliament, we do not see them fighting one another. Okay? We do not see that us versus them ethos that will actually facilitate bickering, facilitate blame shifting, that will foment credit grabbing. No? All of that, all of those things will lead to an ineffective parliament. Okay? And we don't want that to happen. Okay. Now, ano na tayo? Tapos na. We're at the end. Okay. Now, I want to end my lecture with this image. Because to me, it represents what I've just said. No? I've talked for a long time, but this image for me summarizes what I've said. So the first line, more vaccines. For the vaccines, the word vaccine represent genuine our desire to have genuinely principled political parties in the BARM. And we know that these mean political parties that have embraced or have adopted the politics of problem-solving mentality. Okay? Meaning they are committed to the truth, meaning they are committed to a robust public discourse. And the reason why they have those two commitments, it's because those are the ways that they can identify problems that are actually plaguing the region, and those are the ways that they can undertake evidence-based analysis to find solutions to those problems. So we want more of that. Okay? What we want less of is represented by the tarpaulins, the word tarpaulins, which is the traditional way of doing politics, the traditional way of what our politics, what the national political parties are doing. You know? We don't want that in the region. We don't want hyper partisanship. We don't want trapos in our Bangsamoro parliament. So we want more political parties that are preoccupied with problem solving. We want less political parties that are more interested in partisanship than problem solving. That's what we want. Now, if we cannot have that, if by some reason we are unable to fulfill our desire of having more parties that are engaged in problem solving, what we end up with is political parties that are traditional, business as usual. Then what will happen to the Bangsamoro Parliament is represented by the arrow going down. Right? That to me means that, you know, the BARM can potentially become another quote unquote failed experiment. So that ends my presentation, but I'd like to offer 2 reflection questions, which you can share to me via email. And that is, the first one is, what do you think? Is there robust public discourse in the BARM? And number 2, name at least 3. If you can name more, that's fine. Name 3 problems BARM political parties must prioritize. Okay. With that, thank you for listening to me, and I hope